He's got it. I mean, I have it for Randy. Does everybody else have it?
They should have it. I don't know.
This is the resolution. And I've got that. So I just want to make sure the board has it.
Everybody has motion there.
Okay.
We all ready?
All right. Meeting of the Starkville Board of Aldermen will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. And following the Pledge of Allegiance, Alderman Vaughn would like to open us with a word of prayer. Following Alderman Vaughn's prayer, we will observe a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our God, our Father, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, by the way of the Holy Spirit. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we want to thank you for the privilege as well as the opportunity that you give us to give thanks and praises and glory to you. Thank you so much, Father, for the mayor and this board that you have selected to handle the affairs of the city. Praying now that you will just continue to direct our thoughts, our minds, and our heart. Father God, granting us the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that you granted King Solomon, be able to discern right and wrong, good and evil for your peoples. Father God, that we will always be mindful of all those that are less fortunate than we are, every city and every county that is around us, that we will be concerned and that we will be access to these cities, that this city will move forward. Blessing us as we go through our budget committee and blessing us as we go through all the things that are before us. Father, we give you all praise and glory that you will guide us and direct us. And Lord, we will look to the hill which comes all our help, because all our help come from you. In the mighty name of Jesus, we give all praise and glory to you. Thank you so much for being our God and we your servant, being our Father and we your little children. Thank you so much for controlling our destiny, not leaving us in the hand of no man. We give you praise and glory in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
All right, you have before you a copy of the written agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda as written? Alderman Vaughn.
Mr. Mayor, may I recognize?
You may.
On the mayor's business. Consideration of approval advertising for professional service by investor, inspector, building inspector, survey, and local legal service for the city of Starkville. Move that consent, please. A, B, and C.
The proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to move items A, B, and C under mayor's business to the consent agenda. Those are as follows. The approval to advertise for professional services for an asbestos inspector, building inspector, surveyor, and legal services for the City of Starkville home program as presented. Approval of a request for cash and to pay the current and all subsequent invoices related to the CDBG grant for construction of the parking garage upon receipt of funds per Mississippi Development Authority regulations as presented. Approval of advanced travel for Mayor Parker Wiseman and Herman Peters to attend the 2013 Playful Cities Conference in Baltimore, with mayor's travel not to exceed $1,100 and not to exceed 50% of Herman Peters' flight and hotel not to exceed $450. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Proposed.
Do I hear any objections?
Mr. Mayor, on that matter about you and Herman, Shantae rewrote that, so let me make sure the clerk got it. It's a little bit clearer, but the intent's the same. You can take a look at it later. Shantae wrote it. The first draft wasn't really clear, but it's a little bit clearer.
Alderman Vaughn, and for the sake of clarity, was this what you proposed revising the agenda to place on the consent agenda? All right, that's been placed with the clerk. Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, please note the change. Those matters have been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revisions?
Upon the board business. A, move to consent. B, remove from the agenda. C, move to consent. D, move to consent.
All right. The proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place item 10A, the approval of a request by Diane Wall to place the Oktibbeha County Humane Society flyer and utility bills as an insert as presented on the consent agenda, to remove item 10B from the agenda, which was Consideration of the letter of interest to appoint Steve Phillips to the Parks Commission. Placing item 10C, the approval of the letter of interest to appoint Lawson Graves to the Parks Commission on the consent agenda. Also placing item 10D, approval of the appointment of Nathan Moore to the Transportation Committee. And you did not address item 10E, did you, Alderman Vaughn?
No, sir, we're gonna let the city attorney get that one.
All right, is that as stated your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those matters have been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revisions?
On the airport, 1 and 2, Department of Business, airport 1 and 2.
The proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place items 11A1 and 2 on the consent agenda. Those items are as follows. The approval to pay the first loan payment regarding the purchase of the south hangar and property in the amount of $23,915.02 to MDA as presented, and the approval of the contract extension with the fixed-based operator at the George M. Bryan Airfield as presented. And that was a document on the table, is that correct? As presented on the table. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those two matters have been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revision?
On the electrical department, 1, 2, and 3 to consent.
All right, the proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place items 11D, 1, 2, and 3 on the consent agenda. Those items are as follows. The authorization to advertise for bids on a forklift to be used for the SED warehouse as presented. The authorization to sell retired vehicles along with surplus equipment via govdeals.com as presented. And the authorization to accept the lowest and best source of supply bids for Starkville Electric Department for the months of August 2013 through December 2013 as presented. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those matters have been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revisions?
Up on the E, Finance Administration, 1 and 2 to consent.
The proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place items 11E1 and 2 on the consent agenda. That is the authorization to dispose of inoperable and unsalvageable computer hardware and the authorization to transfer computer hard drives to the sanitation department, both as presented. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those matters have been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revision?
H, up on the personnel, number 1.
The proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place item 11H1 on the consent agenda. That is authorization to fill the vacant position of crew leader, operator, grade 8 in the Water Sewer Division of Public Services as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revision?
J, Public Service, number 1.
All right, the proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place item 11J1 on the consent agenda. That is the approval to issue a notice to proceed to Stidham Construction, the lowest source of supply bidder to install sewer pipe north of Woodcrest Drive in the amount of $34,847.28 as presented. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear an objection? Do I hear an objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revisions?
No, sir. I think that's all of them.
Are there any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? Mr. Mayor?
I'd like to add on 10B, board business, replace B, consideration of the letter of interest to appoint Bobby Grimes, Ward 3, to the Board of Appeals and Adjustments. We're on consent.
All right. The proposed revision from Alderman Little is to add a new item to both the regular agenda and the consent agenda, and that would be item 10B. And that would replace the item 10B that was previously stricken from the agenda, so the rest of the matters would remain as they originally were. And that proposed revision is to place the appointment of Bobby Grimes to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals on the agenda and the consent agenda. Alderman Little, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, please note the change to your agenda. Alderman Little, do you have further proposed revisions?
I do. 11J under public services, item 2, I'd like to put on consent.
All right, the proposed revision from Alderman Little is to place item 11J2, the authorization for the mayor to execute an amended wastewater agreement between Mississippi State University, the city of Starkville, and Breckenridge Group, Starkville, Mississippi LLC, as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Little, is that your proposed revision? Do I hear any objection?
Mr. Mayor, I have no objection, but I do want the city attorney to address, it would be best if they would start putting on these documents the exact change in the language. I noticed that the attorney had approved the earlier change, but I want to know the specific numbers that led to the amended agreement. Once you do that, Mr. Attorney, I have no objection to it going on the consent. So if you would tell me exactly what was the specific changes to that agreement.
Sure, let me get to it in the board packet.
Okay.
And the contract in the board packet had some amounts in bold.
Yeah, it did, but it didn't tell us what you were deleting out. I'm
That's right.
familiar with it.
That's right. After we passed the contract at the last board meeting, Aspen Heights, or the Breckenridge Group, who we were contracting with, asked if Starkville and MSU would agree to a quantity increase from 6 million gallons to 7 million gallons, and for a drop-dead quantity increase, so to speak, from 8 million to 9 million gallons. That was run by the people at MSU and council's office at MSU, and Doug Devlin signed off on it for the city, and so those were the revisions.
Well done, Mr. Attorney. What happened was on the agreement that was before us, it just had the final numbers. It didn't tell us what it was changed from. So in the future, you know, it would be a lot easier preparing for these meetings if you would just put in there, or whoever's doing this, so we'll know without having to ask all these questions.
So noted.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any objection to the proposed revision from Alderman Little? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, please note the change. Alderman Little, do you have further proposed revisions? Are there any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? Any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? Any further proposed revisions? Seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda as revised is in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the merits? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. You now have before you the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any objection to the approval of the consent agenda as revised? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda as revised is approved. That will take us to announcements and comments. I have no comments this evening. Are there any comments? Alderman Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, basically, I got some comments that I want to make, and I'm going to take a little time with it, and this is just for informational purposes. Some of my constituents have made some inquiries to me about the state of financial matters that's before the city at this time, and also there are others in the city who have made some inquiries to me. So I want to ask the city clerk, and it's nothing non-friendly, Mr. Clerk, and I'm sure you are very knowledgeable on all these things, but I want to make sure that my constituents are well informed, and others who have asked me these inquiries. As we move forward, we have a lot of very important decisions to make, and it is my opinion that this board is going to have to make a lot of key financial decisions during this term. There are a lot of important things that are facing this board, and the first thing I want to ask Mr. Clerk, of course, back in June of 2012, I think it was June 5, if I'm exact, the board approved on a 43 vote for the certificates of participation of $8 million, and which have been approved. And the question I want to make sure that you know that as we proceed forward, and Tim, if I'm correct, that there has been a bond closing just on the first phase of that. I think that may have been back in June of 2013, just for the proposed new city hall. Am I correct?
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Now, and of course, now that the bond closing, that would be the approval of finances, and I think that those finances that were approved were about $6.4 million. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And I think that the expenditures to the, you with me, clerk? Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
doesn't he give you time to prepare for something?
No, sir, the mayor asked me a question.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, so, anytime you need to consult your notes, just let me know. I thought I had the floor, but,
Excuse me.
okay, but, now, am I correct, Mr. Clerk, that, that $170,000 has been spent on attorney fees and about 173 more or less been spent on architect fees?
That's correct.
Now, so the bond closing, from what I understand, has not been approved in any manner, form, or fashion for the current city hall that's to be renovated for the police department. That has not been done.
No, sir.
Now, am I correct that that the first payment is going to be due in the next fiscal year that starts October 1? There's going to be a payment that's going to be due in December of this year and in June of next year, and that payment is going to run us about $238,000 to $240,000.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and am I correct that from year 2 to year 5, I think we can safely say that that the principal and the interest is going to run us about anywhere from $535,000 to $540,000 more or less?
Yes, sir, more or less, that's correct.
And now, and that money is going to have to come, and the certificate of participation, that's not due to any citizen or board improvement tax increase at this time. Is that right, Mr. Attorney, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Now, so in other words, this $230,000 for the first fiscal year, and then the $500,000 for each of the remaining 20 years, more or less. Now, that does not include any finances for the proposed police station.
That's correct.
Now, and we've been having budget discussion, and I'm just trying to make sure my citizens are informed here. But in terms of budget discussions that we've had, now, if we were to get in year 2 and year 3 and 4 and 5, the $500,000, at this time, we don't have any existing revenue to make that payment if we had to come out of this year's budget other than going from any fund balance. Am I correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Now, let me mention one other thing. I need to just kind of go ahead and say this while I have the floor before we got another important decision to make tonight. And I understand that, we've had 2 versions of the resolution for the general obligation bonds. I had one in the packet. I got another one in my office today, and I understand that a third one has hit the table tonight, which I haven't had a chance to read. But the last one I read, I understand is, and I'm getting a financial question while I'm mentioning it. The resolution that I last read is to authorize for the issuance. It's a resolution of intent to authorize the issuance of, and I'm asking from a financial perspective, general obligations bond in amount not to exceed $5 million. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, Mr. Clerk, now, is it your understanding as the finance director and the city clerk that whenever those bonds issue, that at the worst case scenario, that that first payment is due not later than 12 months after the issuance?
Yes, sir, that'd
Worst
be my
case.
understanding.
Now, as to the general obligation bonds, if we were talking about a 20-year note, and if that note is about 3% over 20 years, that first payment is going to, the city will have to make that payment. It's going to be to the tune of about $333,000. Is that about right? Or $333,000?
That's going to be real close, yes, sir.
Okay, but that's low for interest rate. And we got an interest rate about 4%. That's going to push a little bit higher, about $350,000, $360,000, or $365,000.
That's yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And one other thing I want to mention, because the taxpayers asked this to me, and they saw this in some news account here. And Mr. Clerk, if you can bear with me, I think I'm asking you some questions here.
Yes.
If you have this issue, you need to ask me if you're not
No,
clear.
I'm with you.
Okay, now, so now, Mr. Clerk, now, I understand some news accounts, there was some indication, and I think the Sanitation Environmental Director said that she's asking for a 3% increase, not 3% increase, she's asking for an increase in the residential rates to go in effect this sometime. She wanted us to approve it for this budget year. She wanted a $3 increase in residential rates only. And so is your understanding, and I think the mayor last mentioned it, and this is my last question to you, I'm finished making my comments. So is it your understanding that those rates were last increased for residential and sanitation? I know sanitation went from $10.50 to $13, and commercial went from $15.25 to $20 a month. So is your understanding that those rates were last increased? Well, the board actually increased it about the middle of September 2010. That's my next last question. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, sir, September 15th.
Right, and then those rates went into effect on January 1 of 2011. So the point that I'm making here, there are a lot of things that's facing this board. You got the certificates of participation payment, the interest payment is going to come due. That was passed without any concern from the people. I'm just putting this out to my constituent other because I was asked this. So that's going to come due. And those subsequent years going to be at least $500,000 more per year. And then we have not even funded any financing for the police department. Now, of course, I'm going to make a couple more preliminary comments, and I'm sure we're going to hear from Mr. Deaton tonight about the general obligation bond. And I certainly support economic development. A couple of things I want to say here is that even if we do an intent tonight, those bonds can be issued at some time. Now, the resolution that I last read said that that it directs the issuance of the bonds on September the 17th of 2013 at 5:30 p.m. or a meeting thereafter. But even if it is at a meeting thereafter, they're going to be issued at some point, and you got to have money to pay it. So, but what it appears that's about to happen, and of course I'm not against economic development, I'm just letting responding to inquiries from my constituents, but what's about to happen, if you vote for this thing tonight, from the way I understand the draft I last read, you're going to be, this is my opinion, it's potentially setting you up for a tax increase. Because you're going to take at least, in my opinion, at least a $2 million increase to support the economic development. And another problem I have with this thing here that we're going to look at on this this general obligation bond is that it not only going to cost the taxpayers, but it directs that the bonds be expended in a manner that's recommended by the link. And it's my understanding that all those members are appointed by the partnership, and then in the partnership appointing that, then I think most of those, I can stand to be corrected, and I can stand to be corrected, but I think most of those members are non-elected. So, but it's the overall financial picture that we got to look at. And we been having budget hearings. We just don't have the money in the bank now. But it would appear to me, and of course I saw this in the paper. The paper's not always correct, but no disrespect to the paper. But I saw it in Starkville News this morning, and I don't know whether it's true or false that the county has approved for the general obligation bonds for the project that Mr. Deaton is seeking. But in my opinion, if the county has approved it, then that should be sufficient because the county includes the municipality. You got the same taxpayer. But I guess the argument from Mr. Deaton and group is going to say, well, we need the money. But it appears that we're out of money. We got an ending fund balance. I think our last check, I was told by the Financial Administration Office, maybe $700,000, $800,000. But you got these bond payments that's going to be coming in. You issue these general obligation bonds tonight. That's going to be coming in, and then you got to have just your regular city needs, and you got the sanitation department asking for increase, and we cannot do everything. So I just want to point those things out because I had some constituents that asked that. That need to be, Mr. Mayor, I'm not trying to cause any issue here, but I need to take the time as an elected official to be able to do my job, just to address these things effectively. So I'm not trying to cause any confusion or any problems here, and I'm just want to get this information out because however the board decides, you all know by now, Alderman Perkins, hey, everybody just do what they need to do. So I'm not trying to have any issue with anybody, but I need to point that out. So the state of the affairs in this county, in this city, is real tough, and we got to at some point, with the certificate of participation bonds, and the police department has been the main emphasis on this thing. So in the bond closing, all those monetary amounts you've heard just been for the city hall. So that's where we are. So, and we'll address this matter further with this general obligations bond tonight, because once you, even if you say, well, we don't intend to issue them now, we just gonna do this later. But when later comes, the payback got to come. So I know we're trying to get interested in, that's good, want to commend those, not fighting it, not opposing it, but a great job, thanks for trying to get them here, but at the end of the day, you know, I mean, the millage is gonna go up. I mean, I've been here long enough to know it. So, but that's just my opinion. So, but Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point those things out. You know, we all have different duties and different assignments, and I just want to make sure as long as I'm here at this table that I'm doing my job. So like I told Mr. Carl the other day when he asked me for something, I told him I want to be remembered as having given the best of service. So I'm doing my job, so whether you like it or not, I'm done. The floor is yours.
Are there any further comments? Any further comments from the members of the board? Any further comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move to citizen comments. At this time, any citizen wishing to make comments may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Good evening to the mayor and board, Vladimir Perkins,
Thank you,
Alderman
Mr. Turner.
Vaughn.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Where's the sign-in sheet?
We don't have a sign-in sheet. Carl, would you like to do a sign-in sheet? Okay.
Yeah.
We-
Mr. Mayor, I'll take a sheet.
Yeah, we,
I got it.
Thank you, Alvin.
We can't be slipping. All right, it's easy to start. Grandma said, don't start nothing you can't finish. Like we have to stay on top of things. Citizens, we have a few concerns. School finna start. And we had issue with situation that happened in Florida, and a lot of people still probably gonna be uneasy. So, I am legal redress of the NACP. We would need a handbook, and they have a policy with all this gun shooting, or they have a policy that they'll implement this year, so that I will need that, because our people still is on edge, and if you ain't never been shot at or whatever, you don't want to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Do we have any further citizen comments?
My name Chris Taylor, Ward 7. And I want to make sure that as you're doing your budgeting, that you do put in there raises for the employees. Because we still have a lot of people making right at $9 or less an hour. And that's, you know, in this day and age, we don't need it. So think about the low wages.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
I'm Alice Carol Caldwell from Ward 5, estimated, and I want to thank you for the clear way in the open forum that you had about the rezoning of the colonial arms apartments. As you know, I was on the other side of it, but Dr. Rosa and I talked about it, and I trust what he says. The other thing I want to say is about responsiveness. I taught school for 32 years, and there was one rule. If a teacher called you, if a parent called you, if a citizen called you, you returned the call. You responded to them in some way. You could do the same thing, and one parent would praise you. Another would call and lambaste you. You would be doing the same thing. But you answered. I taught some of you on the board, and I talked with some of the others of you. I talked with Mr. Perkins' mother, who was one of the most ethical people I've ever known. She was beloved in the community. I still remember sitting at her funeral with the whole town there. I feel that some of you were not responsive during the Lynn rule, and I'll call it an uproar. There were many citizens who came up here and said, I got in touch with my ward person, and they did not respond. I wrote to all of you, and I appreciate those of you who responded to me. Sometimes it was thank you, sometimes it was I will think about that, but some of you responded, and thank you. I hope that in the future that you will answer to your constituents. We just heard Mr. Perkins talk at length about what the people in his ward have talked to him about. I wish that some of the other people had talked the way they felt about Lynn's rule.
Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. Any further citizen comments?
Yes, sir, I'm Randy Powell, one of Mr. Perkins' constituents. I'm also the coach of the rugby team, Mississippi State. And we've had a team here since 1977, and we have never been asked to host an SEC tournament until this year. So we got 6 votes out of 14 to come here and play. All 6 of those teams came to play games. They made their decision to come back and play the SEC tournament mainly because of what this man's done for the sports flag. Now, having said that, here's some figures from last year. Montgomery, Alabama hosted last year 839 players, coaches, and trainers and reps. Total food bill, $83,000. At 210 rooms, that's 4,200, 42,000. Blah blah blah. List goes on. In all, $451,000 went to Montgomery's economy. I have a chance here to do something good for the university's rugby team, but I'm tired of the bickering between you and Dan. Y'all got to get together somehow, because when I go to the board, SEC president, and I have to tell him what's going on here, it ain't gonna look good for me. Unstable, they're not gonna like it. In fact, the alternative is to go to Tupelo and play the tournament. So, you know, I almost pulled out today, Dan, because I'm so tired of you getting on his butt for doing his job. So here's the deal I'm gonna make you, Parker. None of you other guys are gonna count. Parker, I guarantee you, if you won't say one negative thing about Dan Moreland and running that sportsplex, and you keep your little paper puppet over here in line, no negative comments, this $451,000 to go in this city's account will go right here. All right? If you can't do that, I'll take it. We'll go to Tupelo. Is that clear?
Thank you, Mr. Powell.
Parker, can you look me in the eye and tell me you won't do any more negative comments like that?
Mr. Powell, I don't know if I follow your question. If
You
you're-
know what I'm saying, Parker.
Mr. Powell, maintain the
Parker,
floor.
do you want the $451,000 to go into the public coffers?
Mr. Powell,
Do not-
lower your tone or the sergeant of
No
arms is
more.
gonna have to escort you out.
All right, well, it still don't matter. You're gonna have to explain to the people, Starkville, Mississippi, why $451,000 is going to a city 60 miles north of here.
Thank you, Mr. Powell.
All right, you think about that, because you're gonna be accountable for telling these people $500,000 going up the road.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Do we have any further citizen comments?
I have one. I decided not to, but good evening to everybody that's on the board, and also to you, Parker, who's the mayor, also to my vice mayor,
Thank you,
who is
Tom.
also my alderman, and Mr. Henry Vaughn, I call him and I can't kid Roy. So I wish to thank all of you. But first of all, I would just like to say thank you all for what you did, and even if you voted down, for Lynn Spruill. I want you to know that the law is the law. And we got up here, Parker Daddy said the law was the law. Thank you for holding what you did, and I really appreciate that. And I know we're gonna come into some more difficult times here. I know we're gonna do that, but it's one thing I would like you to, know. This guy right here took a lot of staffing last week. He did. I really had to pray for him really hard. I was sick, but I had to pay for, for being. I would just like to thank him for doing what he did. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say it with pride. Everybody said he didn't have any, religion didn't have anything to do with it. If not, he wouldn't have been there saying what he said, and I thank him for it. And I also thank each one of my aldermen on this end that come through, on Long Street and look at the parks. I still want y'all to come through. I love the parks. I ain't gonna get through talking about my children. None of my children in the park. When you go in the park, you see my children, you see the future. And I would like to thank each and every one of you for that. But the race now that we gotta do, we gotta endure and go to the strip. And I know a lot of folks probably looking at me saying, why she saying that? Because it's my opportunity to speak now. They had theirs, so I got mine. And the parks, are not muddy. And Dan is not the bad person in town. He's not the bad person in town. But I just like each one of you to know. And I'm gonna give you these lifesavers. I'm a believer in candy. And I believe Taylor gonna get gone. He ain't gonna get no lifesaver. He got to do it together. Okay? So I believe, and the attorney, you get gone because you got to approve. But I would like to thank you each for being so sweet, so nice. And just enjoy your candy. And if you don't want to throw it away, I won't resent it. But I'm gonna pray for all of y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Do we have any further citizen comments?
Earl Vernon from Ward 2. You all heard the news from outside of Philadelphia last night. An irate citizen killed 3 members, shot them, of city meeting. And it's attitudes of what we just saw demonstrated here tonight. That needs to be kept out of here.
You don't boss me.
Maintain decorum.
I didn't want him to know.
Do we have any further citizen comments?
You don't boss.
Maintain decorum. Maintain decorum. Mr. Gafford.
Jim Gafford, Ward 5.
Alderman Vaughn.
Mr. Mayor, and also would like to say good evening to my Alderman Maynard. As Alderman, your primary responsibility is to craft legislation and manage issues which promote the best interests of the city of Starkville and its citizens. This can only be accomplished if you openly discuss and articulate your rationale for any and every decision you make in a manner that is consistent with a long-range plan and clearly identifies pathways to a brighter future. Your recent actions are merely symptoms of more troubling issues. You've managed to destroy any sense of credibility and respect for our local government, and merely claiming divine authority is a shallow, cowardly, and dangerous act. I urge you to consider at this time that your most important task is discerning how to restore integrity to our government, which you in a few short weeks have managed to annihilate. If you cannot craft distinct, coherent, consistent, and meaningful ideas, each of you can expect to be the subject of continued ridicule and derision. Ridicule is the only weapon which can be used against unintelligible propositions. Ideas must be distinct, or reason can act upon them. Thomas Jefferson, July 30th, 1860. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gafford. Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments?
Hi, Chris Gottbreath, Ward 2. I was disappointed to hear that the Starkville Police Department had been asked to investigate 2 Twitter accounts you created to comment on the recent, I don't know what to call it, Starkville politics. These parody accounts have been taken down. I'm not sure whether that was done by the individuals who sent them up in response to the intimidation, or whether they were taken down by Twitter. I think it's, A, that's an unfortunate use of city resources, and B, I think that it's strongly suggests an intolerance towards freedom of expression and the freedom of speech. As any of us who might watch The Daily Show, Saturday Night Live, or The Onion are aware, parody is an acceptable and perhaps even important part of vigorous public discourse. I'd rather like to see, I'll keep this brief, I'd rather like to see an environment that respected First Amendment freedoms and encouraged, rather than discouraged, civic engagement in public discourse. I think that's the way forward here.
Thank you, Mr. Godbrad. Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments?
You're worried, aren't you, Mayor? I'm Sandra Sistrunk, Ward 2. And I am here, I wanted to amazingly echo a lot of what Alderman Perkins said earlier tonight. Y'all don't realize this, but Alderman Perkins and I see eye to eye pretty frequently about financial matters regarding the city. And he has a much longer history than I do about what one board inherits from a previous board. The prior board inherited from the previous board a rainy day fund that was dangerously low, debt related to some bonds, a fire station that had no staff and needed to be staffed. This board has inherited the municipal complex, a commitment to addressing employee salaries, that sort of thing. This board also inherited a reasonable ending fund balance, reasonable unless it starts being gutted for other things, for one-time expenses or for ongoing operations. We also, despite what Mr. Adams said, had a plan for how we were going to fund that municipal complex, and it involved incremental tax revenues. So there was a plan for the revenues for that municipal complex. I'm saying all that to loop around to the bond issue, and there's many things y'all need to talk about the bond issue, and I hope y'all will address a lot of this when you consider the resolution. First and foremost is, what's the role of city government in economic development? Is it to provide for private businesses? If it is in industry recruitment the best for the city of Starkville? Would those dollars be better spent recruiting retail businesses or some other type of business? If there's a recruitment of some sort of business, will it provide jobs for people here in Starkville? Or, like we frequently see in other communities, will those jobs go to people from outside the community? What are you giving up if you use $5 million for economic development? Are those dollars going to cause some decrease in city services? Are they going to result in a tax increase? Those are all things y'all need to think about. Your job, Mr. Deason's job is to ask you for money, and Mr. Deason's job is to recruit industry, and he's good at his job. Your job is to ask critical questions, to think about the impact for our community, and make a decision that's in the best interest of the community. Many of you said that you would not act on something like this and circumvent the will of the people, that you would only do this type of decision, you would defer this type of decision to the community, to the voters. So there's another issue on the table before you tonight. I've said all that to say there's a lot for y'all to talk about. I too support economic development, and I have no idea how I would vote if I were sitting up there tonight. Y'all though have a responsibility to vote. I just get to ask questions and poke holes. So that's what I'm doing tonight. I also want to point out that Alderman Carver is not here tonight, and in the event that y'all vote on this and it isn't a tie, that leaves the mayor in the position of breaking a tie. So if you wish to put the mayor in that potential position, just be aware of that. If it's not time sensitive, perhaps you want to wait until there's a full board here. Thank you very much. It wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be, was it?
Thank you, Alderman Sistrunk.
Former.
And once an alderman, always an alderman. Do we have any further citizen comments? Do we have any further citizen comments?
Mayor, board, city officials, my name is Jonathan Henry, assistant to the city engineer, Mr. Edward Kemp, city of Starkville. It's been a pleasure to serve here with the city since August of 2009. As some of you may be aware, I've decided to return to school this upcoming fall to pursue a graduate degree in civil/structural engineering, and as such will be returning full-time on August the 19th. And so I simply wanted to take this time to come before you to thank you for the opportunity to have worked for such a wonderful organization and with such wonderful people. And I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Henry, and thank you for your service. It's the pleasure to get on.
Will you believe
Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments?
I'm Marnita Henderson, and I just have one quick question. I live in Ward 1. You said, Mr. Perkins said there were $13.5 million on the books in bonds now, and there's $6 million that has been approved, and plus, 6+, and you have 2+ that you're coming for the police department, which puts you right at 22 million. And 5 more would make 27. What is the debt limit, what is the limit of bonds that the city can have?
The 22 million is for general obligation bonds only. And
Okay.
I'll allow the clerk to go in a little greater detail on that. Would you like to expound on that?
Vice Mayor, yeah, and I don't know that the Vice Mayor said that we had 13 million on the books.
Okay, well,
but it's-
okay,
but-
it was in the paper or somewhere.
Yeah,
I've seen it recently.
We have just over 14 million in bonds issued right now. But roughly 1.5 million of those are going to be revenue bonds, so they don't count towards our total. To answer your question specifically, we have call it $213 million and some change in assessed real estate, and that so we can have 10% of that open at any point. So that's call it 21 point. If you want, it's like $21.384 million that we can have bonded, and currently we are sitting just over 13.
Okay.
And so does that answer your question?
Okay, now the 13 does not include the city hall, right?
That is correct. Certificates of participation do not
Do not
count towards the
Okay,
debt limit.
okay.
And neither do revenue bonds.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do we have any further citizen comments? Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? All right, seeing none, that will conclude our citizen comment period, and we'll move now to public appearances. We have 2 public appearances tonight. The first is the always anticipated public appearance from Ms. Miller, who I assume will be giving us quite a PowerPoint presentation, again, on behalf of the horse park.
Thank you. My name is Brickley Miller, and this is Jennifer Brignac, and it's nice to see everybody again, and the old faces and the new faces, and happy belated birthday, Mayor.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Can you maybe cut some more lights down so everybody can see? We're getting that turned up. I brought me a little flashlight so I'll be able to see. There we go. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the past, the present, and the future of our horse park, and how we got started. It started with the former Commissioner of Agriculture, Jim Buck Ross. He knew that the horse industry was a multi-billion dollar industry, and so he developed a matching grant program in our state because he felt like every county should have a horse arena. So we currently have 72 publicly funded arenas in our state, and we lead the nation in state-of-the-art equine facilities per capita. So what happened after we built all these arenas? We found that people are investing more money in horses because they can do activities year-round, and that is making agritourism the fastest growing future in agriculture in the state of Mississippi. But the horse park was done differently. We were built on state bond monies. We're like no other because we are a 3-part partnership. And most of the facilities are county-owned and county-run. So if you look at the top picture, we were completed in 1999. And if you look at it, it was 4 metal buildings on a gravel road in the middle of a field. But we're proud to say that with the support of MSU, the City of Starkville, and Oktibbeha County, that we've become the amenity that we are, and that we're a leader in our industry. We increase the desirability and attractiveness of the community. We promote education and outreach programs. We support the 2% tourism tax, and we're part of an amenity-led economic development area. Since the conception of the horse park, we have hosted 598 events in 728 weeks. On an average, there's only 9 weeks a year that we don't have an event. In 2002, we started tracking our statistics. From that time, we have generated over $25 million in economic impact. We've had 318,991 attendees come to those events, and 90% of our business comes from 90 miles away or further, bringing new dollars into our community. And 2012 was no different. We had 42 events, 5 were first time, and we had over 45,000 people come to those events. But we found the key to our success is diversity in what we do. We'll let you see a little bit of what we do. If y'all missed that, the lady was saying roll tide, and those dogs were rolling over as she did that. So you can see a little bit of what all we do, but many of our events give back to the community as well. Take, for example, the Everything Garden Expo, the Starkville Area Arts Council, in its 5th year this year. Not only can you come out and shop fun vendors, get educational things about how to grow your garden, and they do fun children's activities, but they also are endowing a scholarship through Mississippi State University. And if you recently read in the paper, they gave 9 scholarships away last year. The same thing you see with our rodeo. You talk about fun and family entertainment. The Rotary Classic Rodeo, not only do you see the professional cowboys with the spills and thrills of rodeo action, we also cater this event, or the Rotary Club caters this event, to children and to families. Friday night, kids 12 and under get in free. And Saturday night, they have the opportunity to come and ride ponies and do a petting zoo on the arena floor prior. A portion of these proceeds every year also goes to the tuition guarantee program. And this year, they saw their largest crowd with over 6,000 attending the rodeo. I invite you to come out next Saturday. This is another fun event that happens at the horse park from 4 to 8. This is the SAPA Back to School Roundup that will be on August 17th. It's open to the public. It's free to attend. What this is catered for children to do for children's activities. With the purchase of a $10 armband for your child, they can participate in the activities that are going on. And this is not limited to, because there are all kinds of fun things to do. They'll have 7 huge jumpers, a rock climbing wall, pony rides, a video trailer, putt-putt golf, and much, much more. They also have concessions and they'll have fun things for the adults to do as well, and that's next Saturday. Over the years, we've really enjoyed partnering with students at Mississippi State University. Music Makers Productions several years ago began doing concerts out here, and we've had great concerts, like things like Brantley Gilbert, Need to Breathe, Eric Church, and even Pretty Lights. Last year was another new event that happened at the horse park we were really excited about. This was the Haunted Horse Park, if y'all remember this. It was a first-time event that moved out, and that's the Resident Housing Association, along with the students, put this on, and they scared 1,694 people in 2 nights. Not only did they do that, they raised over $8,000. That money goes to the Dress the Children, and what that does is that gives children's gifts for needy children in our area. So there again, the events are given back. The Baptist Student Union Barn Party. Have you ever wanted to learn to square dance? Well, come on out the week before homecoming, and they'll teach you to square dance on the arena floor. This is a great annual event. But we are a division of the MSU Extension Service, and our mission follows with theirs through outreach and service to our community. We host things like the 4-H programs, whether they be horse, livestock, or educational activities. An exciting event that started last year and was Farmtastic. And what this is this teaches children about agriculture. And last year, I don't know if y'all remember hearing about this, but they brought this program back. We used to have something called School Days on the Farm years ago, but they brought this program back. And last year, we had Tippecanoe County 3rd graders go through. Well, it was a 2-day event. Do y'all know it has already grown to become 6 days this year? And we'll have 4 counties of 3rd graders come through. That is November the 4th through the 9th. The 4th through the 8th will be the schools, and the 9th is open to the public, so I encourage you to come out and bring your family out. That's absolutely free to attend. Last week, we had our livestock judging camp and our livestock judging show. We had 143 animals from across the state come along with the kids, the 4-H kids. They showed lambs, goats, dairy, and beef cattle. And we love our tailgaters. We have 150 RV hookups at the Mississippi Horse Park. We not only enjoy the Mississippi State fans, but our opposing fans that come in. They come in usually 2 or 3 days before the events, the football game starts, and stay in our community. We supply a shuttle service that takes them back and forth to the game. But I'll tell y'all, that's where some of our biggest compliments come from. These people travel all over the Southeast to watch their team. And I can't tell you how many times they tell us, God, we wish we had something like this at our university or in our community. It is so beautiful. We get a lot of compliments from our tailgaters. Did y'all know that Mississippi State hosts the oldest quarter horse show in the state of Mississippi? But not only that, we're extremely proud of this show because in 2010, we thought it had kind of seen its last days. We only had 484 entries in the show, and it was kind of struggling, but the Quarter Horse Association came to me and said, would y'all manage, taking the show over and helping the students with it? And we're proud to say that in 2013, this year, I had 3,064 entries. The only show in the state of Mississippi or in the surrounding states that's bigger than our show is the Dixie Nationals. We got a lot of really positive national publicity from this. And you talk about jump for joy and sing and scream. Y'all probably heard me the weekend of April, all the way in town. We sold the entire facility out, had the largest event we've ever had. We have 350 stalls set up. We sold out all the stalls, all the RVs, put up 70 temporary stalls, sold them out, called J3 Ranch, Miss Beverly Jones, and she hosted additional horses for us. We had 1,968 people come through in 3 days, compete in a barrel race, and it paid out $61,000. Last slide. Okay, so the future is bright at the horse park. We just recently accepted a bid to finish our covered arena, and we're also looking at adding air conditioning and heat in the inside, and what that would do would be really open up the opportunity to have even additional and more events. And since my time is out, I'll stop right there and thank you again for your support and answer any questions that you have.
Ms. Miller, you got it down to within 20 seconds. Let me just say, I do not mean this as an insult to any of our other PowerPoint presenters, but you do indeed set the bar for PowerPoint presentations.
Well, thank you.
Do we have any questions or comments from the members of the board?
Mr. Mayor, let me just say one thing. Ms. Bricker, let me just say a couple of things real briefly. We always appreciate you, and we thank you for all that you do. And in light of my earlier comments, let me be real straight with you.
Yes, sir.
We really appreciate all that you're doing. You've been here, the city has given a lot of contributions to your agency since the fiscal year that started October 1, 1998, which is FY 1999. We've contributed to your Mississippi Horse Park for 15 fiscal years at a total of $1,076,396 in money. In my opinion, I'm just speaking for Alderman Perkins, I don't speak for anybody else.
Right.
Monies are really tight this year, and I don't, personally, I'm not voting for a tax increase, I'm not voting for no sanitation rate increases, I'm not voting for any increase, so the bottom line is, it's going to be tight. So, but thank you for all for your service. You always do a remarkable job. I'm always pleased with your presentation. I give you a high mark every time. You know I mean that. So,
I do,
thank
I do,
you for
and I
your
appreciate
service
it.
to the community.
I understand.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions or comments from the members of the board?
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Our next presentation is by Chairman Moreland and Mr. Peters on behalf of the parks. And guys, it is not that I anticipate you any less, but you do come to us 4 times a year, and Ms. Miller comes to us but once a year.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, the reason Brickley does what she does is when she moved to Starkville in a pink Volkswagen, she worked for me at my barn for 4 years.
Oh, that's
and
the
whoever
secret.
set the agenda up here screwed it up. They should have had us before her. We are here for the, by law, we have to report every quarter. And Herman and I have well, if it goes bad, it's Herman's. If it's good, it's mine. And if y'all will notice that Brickley looks a little better than Herman. So I think this will get started. And I'm going to turn it over to Herman and let him start with the slide presentation. They're going to talk, or you going to talk?
I'm gonna talk. Okay. We had several camps this year. First off, we had our junior tennis camp, which was held at Starkville High School. This junior camp was the first time for kids 4 to 7. Those are some of the slides. See, the nets are much lower and the court is much smaller. After then, it goes into our youth camp, also held at Starkville High School. The kids are a little older. The nets are regulation court size. The court is regulation and the nets are regular size. One of the largest camp we had for tennis this year, over the past few years. Some of you may see some of your kids in here. Then we had our arts and crafts camp. It went for 6 weeks, different event each time. It was held at the activity room at the Sportsplex. Each week they had a different theme. This year at the pool with our swim lessons. Also we had open swimming, family swim.
Also, our 4th of July event, we want to thank the fire department as well as the Starkville Police Department. We had all those people out there, and they stayed there with us till it was over, helped direct the traffic. There was events and games for kids and adults. The fireworks show work was great. Everybody really, really enjoyed themselves. Thank each of you who came out and participated. We had our kickball program this year. We had 4 teams in youth kickball. And this is the award banquet. They really enjoyed. We didn't really give out a first or second place because we gave every kid an award who participated in kickball. I think their biggest award was eating that pizza. We have several kids who attend the Splash Pad daily. If you go by in the morning, starting about 9 when it opened to about 7 when it closed after that evening, there are kids of all ages, races, and size at the pool, and we think that everyone is using it and having a great time over there. A lot of the parents are saying we like it. We don't have to get in the pool with our kids, and some of the mothers said they don't have to put on their bathing suit. They can just sit on the side and watch. Thank you so much.
All right, are there any questions or comments for Chairman Moreland and Mr. Peters? Any questions or comments from the members of the board?
Our numbers have been not increasing tremendously on the soccer, softball, baseball, and all, but we are even or above some of the surrounding towns as far as the growth goes. Our most participation is soccer, and that's because you count girls and boys together. If you put baseball and softball together, baseball and the boys' soccer, it would be greater, but soccer is almost year-round, and that's one reason our light bill goes straight up through the season. But I know y'all gonna take care of that for us, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Thank you, Mr. Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I would like to move that we table the matter of the presentation by Joey Deason on economic development in consideration of a resolution of intent for general obligation bonds to support economic development until we have a full board present.
Motion has been made by Alderman Perkins to table the presentation by Joey Deason on economic development and consideration of a resolution of intent for general obligation bonds to support economic development. Alderman Perkins, is that your motion?
Until we have a full board present.
Until we have a full board present.
Yes, sir, that's the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
All right, that motion is not debatable. I will only say Mr. Deason has made the trip, as have representatives from the partnership, to be here for this discussion tonight. I would encourage you to hear what they have to say. All those in favor of Alderman Perkins' motion, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. All right, by a vote of 3 in favor, 3 against, that measure ends in a tie. I will vote against, therefore breaking the tie, and that motion fails. At this time, I'll invite Mr. Deason forward to make a presentation.
Thank you very much. Well, you know, I had some comments that I was going to speak to this evening, but since there's been so much discussion about it, I'm probably going to have to sit down. I want the board to know, I want the mayor to know that this resolution that's before you, it's not smoke and mirrors, it's not a trick, it's not a game. I want the public to understand it as well. You know, at the end of the day, economic development changed about 15 years ago, okay? It's unfortunate, but it did change. And to play in today's market and to win jobs like Mr. Taylor wants that pay more than $9 an hour, you've got to stand up and you've got to put skin in the game, okay? Because a normal individual with a family can't support his family off $9 an hour, okay? Is there a place for $9 an hour jobs? Yes. Is it for a 35-year-old man or woman trying to raise a family? No. Hence, we're here today. I'll give you an example, and it's one that you all may be very familiar with. The Golden Triangle Regional Development, Yokohama. Do you know what was put into that project? Almost $200,000, $250,000. Do you know what you get when you come in second? Nothing, okay? So it's a risk that you take. It's a risk that's worth it when you win. Now, will you win every time? No. Do you take calculated risk? Yes. You know, there are a lot of comments that I heard that I want to make sure that I address this evening, and I'm an open book. I'll be glad to answer any question. First of all, I want everybody here to know that we all want economic development. You know, Alderman Perkins said it, and, you know, I'll come right behind him. You know, everybody wants economic development. Everybody wants investment. Everybody wants jobs. Investment drives revenue to the city. It allows us to do the things that we need to do. Investment and projects that come into the city also drive revenue to the city schools, okay? It's very, very important. One of the items, Mr. Perkins, I want to make sure that everybody here understands, and I'm not a lawyer. I used to play one on TV every now and then. But with regards to the resolution, we are asking you for the authorization, and we are not issuing, okay? The issuance would take place after September 17th, which is the date I think you called out. We may go for 24 months, and I'll never bring a project to you. I may never bring a project to you. What's important is you got to understand the only person that's going to bring a project to you is me, okay? I will be the one that sits here in front of you and tells you about the project, that explains it to you. The citizens will have their opportunity to throw rocks. You know, a lot of this is predicated with regards to the timing of the issuance. Yes, if you waited and I brought a project before this board and we put the Link's good name and credibility on it, and we go out there, let's say we had us a Yokohama and we brought it here, and I tell you I need $5 million. You vote it down, you'll never see another project again. Like Tippecanoe County, Starkville, they will be ruined, okay? This is our opportunity at this point to move forward together to do the right thing. I can't tell you what the project looks like today. Do I have a bird in hand? When the newspaper called me yesterday, I told them no. There's no specific use for these funds. Don't have one. Got an email last night. You know what? We've got a site visit. Do you know what's happened in the last 3 to 4 weeks? We've had almost $120 million worth of projects and 1,000 jobs that we've either submitted RFPs on or had site visits, okay? Now, what's important is that you understand the dynamics and you understand the finances. I do not want to put the city of Starkville or the county in any precarious position to where they can't afford to do what they can't afford to do, okay? So what I've done is a little quick tool here that I've used, and some of you may have seen it. This is actually one of the projects that came for a site visit. It was a $40 million investment. It was 500 jobs. And in a perfect world, that's it. You don't have to provide land. You don't have to provide building. You don't have to do infrastructure. Everybody's happy. And I do want to thank the board for their passing of the GAP resolution. That is, and it will continue to drive a lot of traffic here to our city and to our county. So I do want to thank you. And in a perfect world, what does that mean? For that size project, you got almost $378,000 that's going to go directly to the city schools. Now, after 10 years, these are the numbers that the city, county, and the county, and the city schools would see. Now, that's before depreciation. Obviously, after 10 years, those assets would depreciate. But in addition, any major manufacturer is also going to be adding assets, so hopefully there'd be an offset or an increase. Now, $5 million. Let's say, for example, I need $2.5 million to entice this company. Oops, sorry about that. On on a $2,500,000 loan, about 20 years at 4%, you're looking at about $184,000. If we had a job, if we had a project that came to us and said, hey, I've got a $40 million investment, it's 500 jobs, but you need $2.5 million. Could be water, sewer, building. I can't tell you today what that project is going to look like. But I can tell you, I would bring that project to you, let you throw stones at me, and let's talk about it. What would that mean to the city? $184,000. At that point, you and you only can make that decision whether or not to vote for it, okay? This resolution this evening does not say you're going to issue these bonds. This resolution is only going to be used as an economic development tool which communities use, preferably to our east. There's 2 counties in the state of Mississippi that do this, Clay and Lowndes, and they have been very, very successful, okay? And that's what I want to do here is use this tool to put in front of prospects. We're not issuing bonds. All we're doing is putting ourselves in a position with timing, because most projects, they can't wait 3 months. They can't wait 6 months. They can't wait over and over and over again. One of the reasons that West Point was successful with Yokohama was the fact that they had the sewer, the water and the sewer in place, okay? If West Point would not have had the water and sewer in place because Brian left, that project never, ever, ever would have probably located there. So it's very vital, very important. You know, what we have here in the form of infrastructure, it's limited, okay? Will we win a fee in lieu project? From my lips to God's ears, I pray that we do, but I will tell you this, I don't think it's likely that we're going to get that home run right off the bat. You know, we've got to get to the plate, which we're at the plate, we're starting to swing the bat, okay? And we're going to put the wood to it, we're going to get a base hit. Chances are it's going to look probably something like this though, 40, 60, 70 million, 500, 350 jobs, etc. Let me show you what happens though once we grow up, we start to develop our infrastructure. Let's just say that that 40 million becomes 140 million. At that point, it becomes a fee in lieu project. This is what our neighbors to the east in Lowndes and Clay have been very fortunate enough to land some of their prospects. You can see your 2.5 million or whatever your number is, whether it's 5 million. The city revenue, because it's a fee in lieu, you're getting $140,000. The county's getting $371. City schools are getting $441, okay? At that point, whether it locates in the city or the county, I would hope that the city has the foresight enough to be, and have the vision that even if it locates in the county, you guys could still do an interlocal agreement so that you could combine your resources, have a project that potentially is debt revenue neutral, and it pays your debt, and you wind up with revenue. There again, I'm not promising you that. If you vote on this just because you think we're going to get a fee in lieu project, don't. If you want to vote on this because you think, you know, it's $40 million and it's not going to cost the city ever anything, don't. What's going to happen is there's going to be some level between here and there that we're going to have to learn to play at. What I do, you know, it's not my job to come ask for money. It's my job to create investment jobs. It's unfortunate that's what it's become in today's marketplace, and that's what we deal with. What I do is I negotiate and I work with those prospects so that at the end of the day, I do my best to make it never revenue neutral so that there is no cost to the city, that there is no cost to the county. At the end of the day, those projects, though, will ultimately be your decision, okay? I'm not gonna bring to you a project that needs $5 million to build tree houses, around the city. That's not economic development. Economic development can be retail, okay? With the right project. So, with that said, I'll just lay it out there. I'll be glad to answer any questions. But I do think it's very, very important that we show the city, that we show our state and our county that we're consolidated, that we're working together. The county has done this. They have provided $5 million in bonds. Why not just lean on the county? Why ask the city? Because at the end of the day, I want to see the city of Starkville be successful too. About 10 years ago, there were some individuals that came from Lowndes that had this discussion with, not you guys. We want you to be a part of the industrial park out at the Golden Triangle region. It was turned down. They also went to Clay. It was turned down. Think about what that decision would mean today if you would have participated. Mr. Mayor.
Questions or comments from Mr. Deason?
Mr. Mayor, I got one comment to the city attorney at this time, and I'll yield the floor. Mr. Attorney, just a friendly question. The clerk are informing that a resolution, a new resolution have been put on the table this evening. And what concerns me, and I'm not trying to get on the last board, back in June 2012, all those documents hit the table the night of. And, and not getting on you, Mr. Attorney, you're doing a good job, but at the same time, we need to read these documents, these resolutions. They have a lot of legal impact. Of course, you know the story. So what's the difference in that third version that I hadn't even had a chance to read?
Sure. This is the sequence of the documents as I understand it. These were drafted by our financing counsel, Mr. Randy Wall, and the first version was put in the e-packet on Friday. Then Mr. Wall tendered a version today at about 10 a.m. And the change from what was in the e-packet to the version tendered at 10 a.m. was to put it in the disjunctive what the purpose for the bonds were for. He stated in his email that the revisions are intended to authorize the GO bonds in the amount of $5 million for either basic public infrastructure in connection with economic or industrial development projects and/or industrial economic project acquisitions and improvements if proceeding under the Regional Economic Development Act. I got involved at this stage. Once this draft came in at 10 a.m., I looked at it and saw that there were some inconsistencies in it, in that in Section 5 and 6, it referenced back to Section 2, which is the public hearing section, and it should have referenced back to Section 3. So I asked them to make that change, and so the very last version that hit the table just merely references back to Section 3, which is actually the public hearing section.
Well, and my last question to you, Mr. Attorney, go to Section 3 of the document. Hopefully it's the same language. And I want to clear it up, where I think it's been represented from the table that they're not asking for the issuance of the bonds at this time. And I think as we read these things as lawyers, I think it's Section 3. Tell me here's any difference. Say the governing body proposes to direct the issuance of the bonds in the amount. It goes on to say at the meeting at 5:30 p.m. on September 17th or at some meeting held subsequent thereto. Is it your interpretation that if this passes, given that language, they can be issued on September 17th or at a subsequent meeting?
After the public hearing on September 17th, I think the board can issue the bonds.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments from Mr. Deason?
Yeah.
Alderman Maynard.
Mr. Deason, I want to make sure I understand clearly. If this is approved tonight, before these bonds are let, you would come back before this board, present a project. It would be up to this board to vote up or down on that project, whether it's to be funded.
That is correct. And I do want to address Alderman Perkins' concern. if you look at our sisters, because we're using this as a model from Clay and Lowndes, they have actually had this same resolution, I believe, in Lowndes, and it's gone without being used for 2 years. So what I would do in the event that we don't use this in 2 years, I would probably come back about month 20 or 22 and ask for the same resolution again. Because there is a chance that we may not be able to use them.
Further questions or comments from Mr. Dees? All right, I've got some comments, I guess, at the outset of this discussion. I actually brought a book with me tonight, and this is a book that I like. I would recommend any mayor read this book, and alderman as well. It's written by Jack Schultz. Jack Schultz is one of the most prominent names in the country for economic development in rural areas. Stated simply, this guy has proven that he knows what it takes and what moves jobs into communities in places like Starkville. And there's something I came across when I read this book years ago that I thought applied to where we are tonight. And it's where he talks about how the personality type of a community is often the defining factor in determining whether that is a community that attracts good jobs at good wages. And he describes communities as having one of 4 different personality types. One of them is moles. He says, or excuse me, not moles. Moles would be the second one. The first one is mules. He says, if you drive into a mule town, you get the sense that this community is not only opposed to change, but also proud of the way it is and has been for many generations. What worked for my great-grandfather is good enough for me, is a commonly shared sentiment in mule communities. Mules take fierce pride in who they are or were and what they're about, even if the rest of the world passed them by 50 years ago. The second type of community is moles. He said mole communities don't share the fierce attitude of their mule compatriots, but they do have the same dismal outlook. Mole communities are always behind the times, never at the forefront, and are often left behind altogether because of their unwillingness to consider change, to be forward-thinking, to take appropriate risks, to be bold. They may appreciate the can-do attitude, but can't collectively muster enough of it within their own town to change their regressive ways. Like mules, they resist change, but moles' resistance stems from fear, not obstinacy. Next is jackals. Deep down, jackal communities are fearful as well, but they respond much differently than mole communities. Jackals lash out, deriding other communities that take risks and meet new challenges head-on. Jackals prefer to sit back and watch others fail rather than move forward and try to succeed themselves. Like mules and moles, they prefer to stand pat, but do so with an attitude, one that that definitely isn't a can-do attitude. Jackal communities are parasitic. They want to live off of the success of others, even as they deride the risks successful towns take and attitudes that help those towns calculate and then take those risks in the first place. And the final town is eagle. Eagle communities possess, among other characteristics, the positive attitude needed to make and keep a town successful. Eagle communities aren't fearful of what others think of them. Rather, they focus on what they need and how they want to achieve it. Satchel Paige, the great baseball pitcher, once said, "Don't look back. Something might be gaining on you." Mules, moles, and jackals are constantly looking back, but eagles remain intent on looking forward. Eagles have a vision which helps them get what they want. They are also proud and fearless and pay no heed to rumors, gossip, or petty concerns, what-ifs, and popular opinions. In terms of real birds, of course, they're out after prey. In terms of towns, they're out to achieve their goals, to ensure their vision becomes a reality. Now, the reason I brought this tonight is because the thought dawned on me that with the decision we're going to make tonight, we can be any one of those communities based on what we do and how we do it. Everybody sitting up here, everybody that has gathered in this assembly tonight would agree that we are a town that's hungry for industrial development, good jobs that pay good wages. That doesn't separate us a bit from every other town in the United States of America. Everybody is hungry for those things. But not all towns are getting there. Some are mules. We can sit here and we can say, we can't do something like this because we've never done it like this before. Some are moles. we can come up with plenty of reasons why there's just too much risk associated with this, and but we should be afraid of doing it. We can be jackals. We can look at Lowndes County and Clay County, our neighbors who have both adopted this program, have seen billions of dollars of industrial development and thousands of jobs that pay good wages come into their communities. We can look at them and say, well, that's just not our way of doing it, and convince ourselves that that's something that we're really proud of. Or we can be eagles. We can capitalize on the bold decision that we've already made, and that is to join with our partners in this region like no other region in the state has done, and we can buy into the program and take the bold step of doing what Lowndes County and Clay County now have proved works. I think regardless of how this decision comes out tonight, we're going to be one of those 4 communities. Discussion.
I have a question for you, Jeff. Mr. Deason. What would you say right now when people interested or people are coming in looking to potentially develop in Starkville? What is their perception or attitude towards Starkville and its history of industrial or retail development?
Well, in the past, if that's what you're asking, Alderman Walker, the attitude and the impression has not been one that's been business friendly. It's been one that has been somewhat subdued. You know, I've heard it said that Starkville has been successful in spite of itself. You know, you guys, we guys, because I bought a house, I'm now a Starkvillian, we have a quality of life unlike anybody else in the state of Mississippi. Parker was talking about the attitude of a community, and some of you may know this, some of you may not. This week there will be a press release, and I'm not going to say what it is, but it'll be related to Yokohama, and it's going to be related to jobs, and it's going to be related to, guess what? Octibbeha County, okay? So some good things are coming about. But you know why those good things are coming about? Octibbeha and Starkville had a huge, huge, huge hand in that. And I'm going to give you one small example. After the executives from Yokohama were here, they left. Little did we know one executive stayed. We found out that he stayed. He stayed where? In Starkville. I was able to get with our Japanese interpreter. We got with the gentleman. Where did he want a tour? Starkville. Lowe's, Walmart, Kroger, Piggly Wiggly, the liquor store, you name it. But one of the most important things to him was the Asian food store, because we're the only community that has an Asian food store. This is February. It's raining. It's cold. It's Monday. You know what? It's closed. Can't get in. You know what we do? Pick up the phone, dial the number on it, said, hey, we have a gentleman here who's thinking about moving to the community. He's interested in your store. Would you come and let us in? She said, I'll be there in 8 minutes. She was there in 6 minutes. Gentleman spent 45 minutes in this store. But that's the attitude of a successful community. Quality of life, we've got it. We have to make sure that we have the other anchor to that, which is manufacturing and retail, which work hand in hand, which give us the revenue that we need to drive success in our city. What else I did? We went to Maben. We went to Sturgis. We went to their boards. We asked them to go ahead and approve the resolution for GAP. Do you know who the first GAP certified company is? It's not in Starkville. It's in Maben. Main Street Casual Living. So when you look at the attitude of what you guys are doing today, when you look at the fact that you're one of 3 counties that have passed these resolutions for industrial development bonds for economic development, it speaks volumes. I think TVA wants you to be successful. I think the state of Mississippi wants you to be successful, and we are going to be successful.
Mr. Mayor, I got a question to you. How urgent is this just because one of the aldermen down in Ward 1, he got a family matter, and I would hate to take this on tonight. How urgent is this? Do we have to handle this matter tonight? Because he needs to be here.
I guess what I would say about the matter is it's a clock is ticking matter. I will tell you, this afternoon, Joey I guess he didn't show me the names of all the projects he's working, but he did let me glance a list from a distance. And he's got a list of companies as long as my arm that he is submitting information to that are interested in looking at Starkville. And every day that we delay this, or potential opportunities like that we are losing because he can't state effectively what this community could potentially bring to the table.
Mr. Mayor and Board, I intentionally waited until this new board was seated before I brought this to you guys, because I knew that it was important. I knew that for the next 4 years, this is a decision that you would live with, okay? Could we have done it with the old board? Yeah, we probably could have. Would it have passed? I don't know. It may have passed. But at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure that it's your decision, because now's the time. This project here didn't choose us. There's a reason they didn't choose us. Now, what am I doing? I'm working on trying to figure out how to maneuver the infrastructure so that we are successful the next time we have a prospect.
Joy, how urgent is this with the Alderman Ward 1 with a family matter? How urgent is this? Because he really need to be here.
Well,
how urgent is this?
Alderman Vaughn, I think it's very important. I think the decision should be made this evening.
Further discussion?
I move that we approve a resolution of intent for general obligation bonds to support economic development.
Alderman Walker has made a motion to approve of the resolution of intent for $5 million in general obligation bonds for economic development as presented on the table this evening. Chris, does that meet your
That meets it.
spec?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Walker, is that your motion?
It is.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
Nine.
Alderman Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the citizens came up just a few minutes ago and said that it's the duty of the board to make sure that we look at all the needs of the city and not just honor and just rubber stamp something just because it's being asked. What I'd like to say, in addition to my comments that I made earlier tonight, that it is my opinion that if the board, which it appears to have the votes, because it appears that's one reason the motion to table failed, because it appears that the votes are in place, and appears, in my opinion, that's why Mr. Vaughn's request wasn't accommodated. But it appears to Alderman Perkins that if this matter is approved tonight, it is basically setting this board up for a potential tax increase. You can get ready for it, citizens of Starkville, Mississippi. Now, the clerk has already stated that if this is approved, the worst case scenario is that the bonds payment is going to be due not later than 12 months from the date of issuance. And that payment is going to be at least $333,000 if it's at a 3% interest rate. Now, also too, if those bonds are issued, the city does not have the money in any account at the time if we're going to maintain our current level of services unless we just go into the ending fund balance. Now, if this matter is approved, it's another way of going around the voice of the people. Back in the last year, the language was carefully drafted for the certificate of participation to keep the people from having a voice, to keep the people from being able to vote upon it. And here's another mechanism that does not give the people the voice to vote on a $5 million bond issue. Now, the presenter tells us tonight on a question from the gentleman from 5 that, well, if y'all approve this tonight, then, we may not come and present this until a later time. But that is uncertainty. You got to read the language in the agreement. That's why I wanted to get the attorney's opinion, because he's the lawyer. And the lawyer at the table said that, that if we approve this tonight, that this board and it's very elementary here, that this board would be required to issue these general obligations bond at 5:30 p.m. in this room on the 17th day of September of 2013, if the link so chooses. There's nothing in this language. If they intended to say that, you put it in the agreement. That's how we lawyers practice. If you put down what you mean, you say what you mean, and mean what you say. That language is not in the agreement. And you know, they talk about this economic development. Of course, the city is paying $50,000, but look, taxpayers of the city of Starkville, what they want to do is they not only go to the Octavia Hall County Board of Supervisors and get them to approve a resolution, and the Octavia Hall County Board of Supervisors include all the taxpayers. We are part of the county. Why should we be paying a tax twice for this? Why should the citizens be paying? We're not against economic development. We are paying $50,000 per year for this. We just approved the cotton mills project. We didn't get any coverage on that from the last meeting. We closed that matter out from this session. So the bottom line is that you know, it's just a lot of extra money. The county has already approved this, and that should be sufficient. But yet, that's not enough for this group. This group now comes in and asks the city of Starkville to give a share. So if you pass this tonight, it's going to require, at least in my opinion, 2 mills of taxes. A mill, to my last information, is worth $190,000. We cannot afford it. In year 2 through 20, according to the clerk, we're going to have a payment just for the new city hall to the tune of $500,000 a year. And that's not even break the dirt on the police station. The last time we had an election on this municipal complex, the #1 mandate that was before the people was a police department. But yet the people of Starkville didn't get an opportunity to vote on that matter. And then you have another resolution that hit the table at 4:30 this evening, just like the matter of the certificate of participation, over 100 pages, hit the table at the minute of the gavel sounding on June 5 of 2012. Now this is just ridiculous. We don't have that kind of money in the bank. I'm telling you, taxpayers, we don't have that money. If you approve this, you're gonna have that amount of money. We got to pay for the for the matter of the municipal complex. We got all these existing needs. We got one citizen come up here tonight. We need to give wages. It's gonna cost money. Got a Stennis Institute. We got the director back there from Sanitation and Environmental Services trying to convince us to increase rates for sanitation. I mean, you're taxed enough. I'm telling you here, I've been at this table over 20 years. I'm not up here to mislead you, to tell you anything wrong. I'm not up here for my health. I'm up here for good measure. Whether you agree with it, whether you want me to shut up, I'm not going to shut up until I get through talking. So, but the bottom line is, you know, there are people who come here and ask for money. Like I just told Ms. Brickley, you know, all due respect, she does a great job. We appreciate it. But the money is tight. The money is tight. Once they got the money from Octavia Hall County, that should be good enough. And you know, and I think once we pay $50,000, we shouldn't have to pass a general obligation bond to get an industry here in this town. We shouldn't have to do that. I mean, we just don't have plenty of money. These are hard-working citizens in this county. And these citizens need to get the best out of their tax dollars. And I'm the voice for the people. And the people need to be heard. This is another resolution that flies in the face of the people. You know, the people want to be heard. A $5 million bond issue? And here is, there's a rush to judgment tonight because, in my opinion, it appears that the votes are here to pass this thing because the gentleman from one is out on a very important family matter. Want to do that in his absence. But I tell you, so when this matter passes, you can rest assured that the current language here gives this group the right to come back on September the 17th. And another thing I want to mention before I yield the floor, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the $5 million has to be expended based upon the recommendation and approval of the link. Now, it's my understanding, I think there was some confusion with the supervisor at one point. They appointed one member, maybe some lack of understanding, but But I always read these documents, so I know what's going on. But I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that most of the members here from Octave Hall County are non-elected people. So you want us to approve a resolution that's going to be spent, the money going to be spent by elected officials. So that's the way I read it. So the bottom line is that this is not a good time to do this. The taxpayers are too burdened, and very importantly, we should have been having an election so we could be dealing with the issue of the police station. Maybe we could cut back on some of these calls, because the police department is still not being dealt with. The bond closing that was done on the certificate of participation in June of 2013 did not include any closing money for the police station. The bond closing, to my information, was about a little bit over $6.4 million, and it was $6,750,000, $6.7 million that was allotted for the city hall, and 1.3 was allotted for the renovation of this city hall, and we have not even had any closing for any of that money to be spent. So we got a lot to do. So you can rest assured, if this passed, this payment got to be made. We hadn't factored in any money for the police station. So taxpayers, we don't have it in our budget, and we normally have a conservative estimation of revenue going up by 2%. So you do the math. Tax increase or no tax increase? You're smart enough, and you do the math. So it sounds good on economic development, but sometimes we just got to just analyze these things and say, and have the fortitude as elected officials say, no, we cannot do this. We cannot do this to the taxpayers of our fine city, because they represent us to make these decisions. So in closing here, I'm going to say that we should defeat this resolution and wait till a more feasible time to perhaps look at this. Our finances are too great right now. Voting against this, in my opinion, is not anti-economic development. It's not anti-economic development. We're paying $50,000. We do all other kind of measures to support economic development. Just because we don't approve of the money does not mean we're anti-economic development. So just want to say that on behalf of my constituents and other taxpayers in this city. So we're in this budget cycle. We got to have a budget approved by September the 15th. So when they start looking at this Students Institute and maybe look at another pay raise for all these on the Student Institute, and if a tax increase is needed, you can then don't forget that we may get a potential tax increase from this matter here, and may get a potential tax increase from that certificate of participation at the cost that the money that the cost is going to involve. But for all of these reasons, I just want to take the time, not trying to demean anybody. I mean, everybody's doing their job. I just want to make sure that I'm very thorough in my presentation and my information, so everybody will be well informed, because I'm not trying to say anything negative, nothing bad, nothing that's not good. Like I told the mayor earlier, I'm just trying to present information, because I like what I'm doing, and as long as I'm here, I'm going to just take the time to do that. So I think if I do mine, everybody's going to say what else they want to say, then we'll have all the information. So, Mr. Mayor, with that being said, I'm going to yield the floor.
Let me just offer one thing to clarify, and that is this resolution does not issue bonds. Section 3 of this resolution it gives the governing body the authority at a date subsequent to September 17th, the authority to direct the issuance of bonds. Any issuance of bonds would have to be made on a subsequent decision by the Board of Aldermen. And the way that would work is Joey is going to bring a project, and there's absolutely no guarantee that the project would even require $5 million in bonds to be issued by the city. And these projects typically come with revenue being brought by the industry with them. Sometimes the city comes out better than even on these projects. Sometimes, and it's always the goal for the city to come out even. So even if the debt is issued, it does not mean that the city is covering the full value of the debt service on that project. But the important thing is he's going to bring a real live deal into this board that says this company wants to invest this amount of money in your community and they want to bring this amount of jobs to your community. Do you wish to issue bonds in support of it? And this is how much support the company's going to offer you for the debt service. That's the way this process works. But the point I want to make clear is it doesn't issue bonds and it doesn't require this board at a subsequent date to issue bonds. Further discussion. Alderman Walker.
You made the point I was going to make.
Mr. Mayor, may I say one thing?
Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, one last thing. I want to make sure, and this just to clarify something that I think is important. I've asked the attorney. Section 3 of the resolution says in part the governing body proposes to direct the issuance of the bonds in the amount for the purpose and secured as foresaid at a meeting of the governing body to be held at its regular meeting place in the City Hall of the municipality at 5:30 p.m. on September 17, 2013, or at some meeting held subsequent thereto, and it goes on and on. So I just wanted the public to know that I wasn't dreaming these words up. You know, this is in the document. That's what it says. But we just got different opinions, and I've already asked the city attorney, so I'm going to yield. And Mr. Mayor, I'm ready to vote whenever it is.
Mr. Latimer, would you like to opine as to whether the board is required to issue bonds under this resolution?
Sure, and Alderman Perkins, I apologize if my answer wasn't clear earlier. The question that you posed was whether the Board of Aldermen could issue bonds on 9/17/13, and my answer was yes. I think the board is enabled to do that. This is an empowering document, and you used the words in your talk that it gives the right for the board to act.
Exactly.
I don't think the board would be duty bound or compelled to act on September 17th based on this document.
But if we pass it, the board can.
Correct.
Gotcha. That's the point.
But we can also choose not to. And I think that's the, I have to recognize, Mr. Mayor.
You may.
I think that's the point, is this is a big decision tonight, and I agree with many of the things that Alderman Perkins said tonight. I'm not sure about the rushing to judgment part. I'm not sure that we're doing that. I think that's an interesting comment. It seems to me there's a lot of different issues being convoluted, not just what we're focusing on here tonight. I think I would love to have every alderman here tonight to voice their concerns. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The good news is that if we pass this resolution tonight, now we're sending the economic development team that we are paying good taxpayers' money to go out and represent us, to be able to represent us better. So we actually catch a fish. It's one thing to go fishing, it's a whole nother thing to go fishing and never catch anything. We've done that a long time in Starkville. It's time to move on. Let's catch a fish. So tonight is an important decision. But what's going to be even more important is the subsequent project that Joey brings back. And every one of us at that point can say yes or no, because that's when the taxpayers are really going to be on the hook for the money. If Joey doesn't come back and bring in a good project, if this is a fish that we want to throw back in the water because it doesn't meet the size limit, well then so be it. We say no. That's the time to say no. Tonight's the time to say yes. It's time to catch a fish. At least give them the bait so we can go out and do it.
Further discussion.
I just, I'm all for this, but all my colleagues are not here. I mean, it's just a big decision that we make.
Big decision.
I mean, he got a family matter. I mean, is this decision, that's important tonight? That's what I keep asking. Is it this important tonight? The next board meeting, is this decision that important tonight? That all of us can't be here? This is a big decision for the whole city of Starkville. And I just feel like that a gentleman from Ward 1 need to be here to make this decision. He need to be here to voice his vote. I mean, he needs the same opportunity that we have to make this decision. I'm all for economic development because we need jobs here in Starkville very bad. But also, once we issue these bonds, is it true that a year later that we got to start paying this? Is that true, Mr. City Attorney?
If there is.
If there's a project.
Yeah, I was deferring to the city clerk who handles the money.
Yes, I mean, if these bonds are issued, I mean, we would either have to traditionally start servicing debt at 6 or 12 months. And so, so yes, when they're issued 12 months later, we'll owe somebody some money. Okay,
then that's what they're saying. They're saying we don't have the money. We don't have the money in hand now. So in other words, it's gonna be just like Alderman Perkins say, we're gonna have to do something to generate this money from somewhere. So in other words, the only thing we got to do is raise taxes, because where else the funds coming from if we don't have to raise taxes? That's the only thing I'm looking at. I'm looking at that and looking at the gentleman from Warren not here.
Alderman Little.
We have to start servicing the debt, but it's gonna depend on what sort of deal we cut. All it goes back, is it gonna be a revenue neutral, revenue positive, revenue negative? It's gonna depend on what kind of deal we cut, if we pay anything at all. And we have to keep that in mind. We can sit on the sidelines and scratch our heads and wonder why everything's going to some of these other towns, which we've been doing for years, we can get in the game.
Alderman Nguyen.
Okay, Mr. Deason, first of all, thank you so much for your presentation. And I guess how I look at this is equivalent to going to the bank, get approved to buy your home. Guess what? They tell you whether or not you can shop for a $100,000 house or a $500,000 house. And that's the way I put it in my mind to be able to make my decision tonight. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, please answer yea, nay, or abstain as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Maynard.
Yay.
Alderman Perkins.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Nay, not against economic development because all my colleagues not here. Nay.
4-2.
By a vote of 4 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. Thank you, Mr. Deason.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joey.
Joey, go catch you some big fish.
Amen.
The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the approval of a special event permit for the Student Association for Bulldog Bash and in-kind services.
Hey, Joey.
Discussion. Please. Meeting is still in order.
Mr. Mayor, give them a time to get out, please.
Alderman Maynard, did you have something?
Yes, sir. I'd like to move that to executive session.
Under potential litigation?
Yes.
Motion has been made to move item 10E to executive session under potential litigation. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Maynard, you wish to speak on the merits? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is a request for approval of the City of Starkville claims docket for the fire department as of August 2nd. Discussion.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Walker to approve of the City of Starkville claims docket for the fire department as of August 2nd, 2013. Alderman Walker, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 4 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the request for approval of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments except for the fire department as of August 2nd. Discussion.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Walker to approve of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments except the fire department as of August 2nd, 2013. Alderman Walker, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
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 By a vote of 4 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is Pink Hills. Is anybody else interested in a recess before we hear the presentation?
Yes, sir, let's have one.
All right, is there any objection to a recess? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, we'll now have a brief recess.
Somebody can show me where the water bottles are.
Oh, Lord.
Friday, but he didn't know it was Corona.
Meeting will now come back to order. I'm going to have a presentation on one of my favorite events of the calendar, and that is the Pink Hills firefighter tour. I think I just butchered that. Y'all tell us what it's really called.
Thank you, Mayor Board. We're here to remind you and inform you at the same time of an event that the fire department participates in for a couple of years now. And I thought I'd bring training officer, Mr. Yarbrough, with us tonight. Let him explain it a little bit to you, because he's actually the reason why it's in Starkville.
Good afternoon, Board and Mayor. About 3 years ago, we had an opportunity to get the Pink Hills crew to come through from Arizona. They drive through the country actually and bring awareness of cancer for women. So we got a chance about 3 years ago to get them to come. They came 2010, 2011. They skipped last year. They'll be coming back again this year in October the 21st. So we just wanted to inform the board. Any questions?
October 21st.
I would encourage everybody to stop by this event. Not only is it great because it raises awareness and funds for breast cancer, but it's also just a lot of fun to take part in. So I would encourage everybody to take a little time during the day. They're usually here a whole day, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
Stop by and enjoy the festivities. Any questions or comments, Alderman Vaughn?
What area of the town they in?
Fire Station 1.
Fire Station 1?
Yes, sir. They usually go pretty much all over town, but they station at one, but they move around throughout town.
Okay.
Well, Chief, we appreciate you and Mr. Yarbrough and your staff for bringing this information to us, and so the public can be informed, and appreciate your contacts that allows them to be coming through our great city.
Thank you, sir.
October 21st. You said 21st of October?
Yes, sir, October 21st.
What time does it start?
Start around by 12 o'clock that day.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the open session portion of the agenda. Motion to move into closed session to determine whether there's
So
a need.
moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to move into a closed session to determine whether there's a need for an executive session. Do I hear a second? Motion has been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Vaughn, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Discussion. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. The measure clearly passes. At this time, I'll now ask everybody to clear the room so that the board can go into closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session.